Welcome to the Wisconsin Legislative Reference Bureau tutorial series. This edition discusses how to perform historical research on the Wisconsin Administrative Code, focusing on Section SPS 316.014, which incorporates into the code, by reference, the National Electrical Code. First, a little background. The Administrative Code is a body of law separate from, but related to, the statutes. It is mostly composed of rules, regulations, standards, and policy statements, typically issued by executive branch departments and agencies to interpret statutes and administer the programs for which they are responsible. When these rules become finalized through the process known as promulgation, they have the force of law. When attorneys or other persons perform research on the Wisconsin statutes, the typical question involves legislative intent or legislative history. Essentially, researchers are asking, what did the legislature mean when it enacted a law? The chief source for researching the why question is the drafting record for the act, which created or amended the law. Drafting records from recent years are available on the LRB's website, shown here. In contrast, the typical inquiry regarding the administrative code is more about the when. What version of a rule was in effect at a particular point in time? Displayed is the first page of Chapter SPS 16 Electrical. This chapter is a part of Wisconsin's Building Code, which is administered by the Department of Safety and Professional Services. People often wish to know what version of a building code provision was in effect at the time a structure was built to determine if it was in compliance with the then applicable construction standards. It is fairly common for industry standards to be incorporated by reference into the administrative code. This is primarily because the standards are typically lengthy, technically complex, and frequently revised. Our example focuses on Section SPS 316.014, which adopts by reference into the Administrative Code the 2011 version of the National Electrical Code, or NEC. The specific question we'll address is what version of the NEC was in effect on a particular date, July 1st, 2001. The starting point for administrative code research is the history note located at the end of each section, although relevant notes sometimes appear at the beginning of a chapter. The note generally lists all of the changes that have been made to the entire section since its creation. Since we're trying to determine what version of the NEC was in effect on July 1st, 2001, we observe that our date is between two changes to the code, one made in 1999 and one in 2003. Thus, we can presume that whatever version of the NEC is cited in the 1999 change was in effect throughout 2001. We'll demonstrate how to get to the 1999 change to the code. You may start at the legislature's website. Under Administrative Code, click on Item 1, Table of Contents. Scroll down to SPS Safety and Professional Services and click on it. Scroll down to SPS 316 Electrical and click on either the text version or the PDF. Click on SPS 316.014, Adoption of Standards by Reference. This will take you to the text of SPS 316.014. Under the History note, click Register September 1999, number 525, effective 10/1/99. Click on Inserted Chapters. Scroll down to click on Register 525, Inserted Chapter Com 16, which opens up the electrical chapter as it was repealed and recreated effective October 1st, 1999. At that time, the current section SPS 316.014 was numbered Com 16.12. This chapter was then administered by the former Department of Commerce. As you can see, Section 16.12, subsection 2, provides that the National Electrical Code, NEC 1999, is hereby incorporated by reference into this chapter. Here's the cover of the NEC 1999, which is over 600 pages long. As indicated in the note in the current code section, copies of the National Electrical Code are on file in the Department of Safety and Professional Services and in the LRB, and may be purchased from the National Fire Protection Association or accessed at the organization's website. Whenever any change is made to a chapter of the code, no matter how large or small, the LRB publishes an entirely new, updated version of the chapter. For more recent revisions, a convenient side-by-side listing of the old, replaced chapter and the newly revised chapter are accessible through the link in the history note to the Wisconsin Administrative Register. To illustrate, in keeping with our example, starting with the current version of code section we've been using, click on the 2009 change in the history note. This brings us to a section in Wisconsin Administrative Register number 638 titled Chapters Inserted and Removed by this Register. Click on that and observe the side-by-side links to the old removed chapter COM16 and the new inserted chapter. If you have any questions about performing research on the administrative code, please contact the LRB reference section for assistance.